close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. Finding life along the way, melodies we haven't played. No, I don't want no rest. Echoing around these walls, fighting to create a song. I don't wanna miss a beat. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways.
All right, good evening, everyone. Hopefully you guys had a good Thursday. So tonight we're going to continue taking a look at the DevNet Expert lab exam. So the road to DevNet Expert, as I dub it. So tonight we'll be looking at RESTCONF and NETCONF and some YANG data models. We looked at YANG a little bit in the last stream, but this past week I've been diving real deep into YANG, RESTCONF, NETCONF, GNMI, not so much GNMI, but just kind of understanding, what it's used for, and some of the pros and cons of it. So I'm going to spend some of the stream kind of talking about what I know or what I've learned, and then another part of it actually diving into the labbing part of it. So we'll actually be testing against our CML environment, as we've done in the past. All right, so I always like to start the stream by talking through some of the exam topics that we'll be covering in the stream. So being more specific, as always, if you're in this stream, please, put some. I'm definitely willing to chat. Any questions you have, it could be about the DevNet Expert, it could be about just network automation. Just so feel free to put anything in the chat. If you just want to say hi, that's fine too. At least I know someone's out there. So anyways, so tonight we're actually taking a look at a couple different topics. So the purpose of RESTCONF and NETCONF are kind of they're transport protocols for YANG data models. And you might be asking, like, what's a YANG data model? So we looked at that last stream, and basically it allows us to I hate using the same word as the but it allows us to model the data that you would get from a network device, whether that be configuration data, operational data. Think of it as like it was really built and meant to replace SNMP. So SNMP, obviously is really good at monitoring. It lacks some things in the configuration side. So it's really meant to I guess right now complement SNMP, but ultimately could replace it, in the future. So I want to just give a quick shout out to this book that I'm kind of reading through and as I'm labbing and whatnot. So it's called Network Programmability with YANG, And I'll just kind of put it up on the camera here. Oh, there you go. So I would say if you're, if you're curious, if you're trying to understand like what this is all about, and why even go down this path of learning Yang data models and NETCONF and RESTCONF, I'd highly suggest picking up that book. It's actually suggested in the one of these, and we'll go over this in a second, why I have 3 different tabs open for the study plan. But in the DevNet Expert Learning Matrix, they actually have it as a recommendation, and I've been reading through it. It's definitely I've been taking my time with it. I'm only through 2 chapters. At the end of this week, I was hoping to get through chapter 4, but I just finished chapter 2 today. I do plan on kind of diving in deeper this weekend, but it's pretty interesting. It kind of like, this stream and like blog posts I've done in the past, I've always kind of focused on the why, like why to do something, why you should do something versus how, because I think there's so many white papers, technical documentation on how things are done, but really understanding why to do something is a whole other concept and understanding. So this book has kind of helped me understand why NETCONF was created, why we have RESTCONF, why we have Yang data models, and really as I'm getting deeper into network automation, and it just makes sense. It's overall, I guess I could just say that. So anyways, so we'll be taking a look at 2.5, 2.6, and 2.7. These are kind of the main focus and actually explicitly call out RESTCONF and NETCONF. As you can see here, it's a lot of creating, create a payload based on a given Yang module, create a NETCONF filter by using an XPath, configure network devices using NETCONF or RESTCONF. So that's 3 out of 10 of these topics, and it's 30% of the exam. It's the biggest section of the exam, and 3 of the 10 topics cover, explicitly say RESTCONF, NETCONF. So that's what we're going to take a look at. There's some other section or some other like subsections here that say use NETCONF as a connection plugin with Ansible. And then there's this section 3.2 that's saying automate the configuration of a network device based on provided architecture, including these components. So based on this provided architecture, we may also be using NETCONF or RESTCONF. So that's kind of why it's taking me a couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks to really cover this topic. So hence why we have 2 streams back to back covering it. So, alright, so but up to the top here. So, as I've said in the past, I changed this around, just slightly, not reorganized or anything like that. But as I kind of go through the exam topics and cover what I cover, on my day-to-day, I do figure out, okay, what can I realistically cover in these weeks? So, as you can see this week, Yang, RESTCONF, NETCONF. And I'm on track to kind of have all that completed. Next week will be model-driven telemetry. That just makes sense with where we're at. So you can actually use Yang data models to pull out that telemetry data. And I shouldn't even say pull out. It's more of a push model, but we'll dive into that next week. I'm hoping to have a whole TIG stack together, and we can actually view that telemetry data on stream. So for this week, labbing up, sending and retrieving data models from Cisco devices using NC client. I have Ansible in there as well, and then those are just some video references. Couple other things. So I believe he's pretty popular in the stream, but Blues, I believe it's Blues Kernel. I always refer to him as Blues, him or her. They brought to my attention this DevNet Expert Learning Matrix. So I actually got, this is the second I think it's the second release. It says V1, but this is Learning Matrix 2, because I downloaded the first one and it didn't really have too much from what I remember. And I remember just looking at it and saying, okay, that's fine. Like, I can cover that, on my own. But this second version has really helped. So what I'm doing is I highlight the topics that I'm going to review. And then I just kind of highlight, okay, what did I actually accomplish? So everything in green is what I got done this week and last week. Blue is signifying like a page that's like almost a bookmark. Like, hey, revisit that when we get down towards the end. And you can see like there's vendor docs, Cisco Live. So these Cisco Live presentations I'll probably cover this weekend. And then vendor docs are really just, most of them are RFCs. I mean, you can see here there's some actual like read the docs for Python modules, but a lot like these are RFCs. And yeah, books. And this book link here is the one that I actually just showed you. It's like I said, it's a good reference. So I'm using this as a reference point, just to cover my bases here. And then lastly, I actually pulled because it helped me greatly with the DevCore exam, and there's overlapping topics with the DevCore exam. This is actually Nick Russo's 10-week DevCore plan, study plan. So I'm going out of order, as you can see. I have some things marked as review, but down here you'll see where he covers RESTCONF and has a couple good links. I covered most of them. There's a couple Pluralsight modules I have to cover this weekend. So that should be fun. But anyways, so if you're curious kind of how it's gone, I had one spreadsheet that's gotten revisioned a few times, and then so I kind of go off this as saying, okay, where what am I covering, and then my resources, like the specific things I cover, are within this DevNet Expert Learning Matrix and Nick Russo's DevCore study plan. So yeah, so that's where I'm at. One other thing to mention before we dive in is so I think I mentioned this on stream before, where I was pretty confident that the registration for the lab exam would open up 3 months ahead of this the first date to take your lab, so May 2nd. Well, that would have been yesterday, February 2nd, and it came and passed. I did kind of put a joke out there to Learning at Cisco about waiting for the DevNet Expert Lab, and they did reply, surprisingly, with a they didn't give a solid date, but they said basically wait another month, so or one more month or something like that. So I have the new registration date as March 2nd. That is not set in stone at all, but I'll be checking back then to to see if I can register. So another month away, but obviously that's not going to stop my study schedule. So all right, let's see. Let's dive into some RESTCONF and NETCONF. So I've been working, I think I mentioned this before, I've been working out of a GitLab repository really ever since I figured out that I'll probably be using GitLab in the lab, in the actual lab environment. So I made created a link. I'm not signed in. You might be able to actually just search it. Let me just search it real quick. I put a link in the README in the GitHub repository, because I know that's kind of what I advertised in the beginning. So yeah, I put this little attention block in here today that says, basically I discovered that GitLab will most likely be used in the lab environment. So a lot of the scripts and stuff will actually be in GitLab, for practice. And then I linked the actual repository. So if you want to, if you've never used GitLab, I highly suggest It's I've used it in the past for, actually this is where I learned CI/CD for the first time, and it's pretty neat. I'll say that. So you'll see that there's a new folder here if you been following along or keeping track of this, and it's called Model Driven Prog, or for programming. And I only have one folder called NetConf. We'll be adding to that tonight. We'll actually create a RESTCONF folder. So I went through some of the Cisco DevNet learning labs, and that's where a lot of this data came from. So you'll see I have some actual Yang models here. I use PyYang to, it's a Python library that helps kind of print, and think of it as like pretty printing it, so that way it's easier to read. So just to kind of show you, oh, you know what, that's not going to show. Oh yeah, well, so like this is an open config Yang model, so you can see like it's kind of like JSON in a way, and you can read, if you know Yang and understand like containers, lists, leaves, you'll kind of be able to read this. But PyYang, on the other hand, prints out something. If you use PyYang, you basically say PyYang, and then you feed it the Yang model, that Yang file that I just showed you, and it does this. So it prints it out in like a tree format. And so you'll see like the module here, you'll see the container for interfaces, and then the list of interfaces. And you can see all the other factors. Obviously, if you've read a Yang model before, this is much easier to read. If not, it's also much easier to read. RW is the read-write, read-only, RO. And you'll see the different leaf names and types here. So you'll see name, type. Wow, I didn't mean to say it like that, but this is the name here, right? Name, type, MTU, description, enabled, and then these are the different types. So think of it as like data types. So the read write obviously are some things you can do with configuration, and read only are more your operational stats, and you can kind of tell by looking at admin status, oper status, counters. Obviously that's more of a statistic and operational data versus something you would configure. So I think looking at it this way is pretty easy. But yeah, you use the PyYang Python module for that. Okay, let's get over to the device. So pretty much tonight we'll be covering mostly RESTCONF, because I completed NetConf the past couple nights, and just to kind of as reference here, let me scroll up. Most of my examples were with NXOS devices or Nexus, but the nice part is a lot of these modules are the same, models. Now they do differ from Nexus to iOS XE, but basically, this is kind of how you can configure or use a model. NetConf only uses XML, so that kind of sucks. And if you saw my tweet, you can, I said I made the determination that it's not fun. I actually am gonna be amending that, because I found out that there are some really good pros to NetConf versus RESTCONF, but there's still no points for XML. It's too verbose for me. I like the cleaner JSON structure. But anyways, so in this Python, and this is a Python script, by the way. It doesn't look like one right now, but down here you could tell. So with this particular piece, this script, we basically identified a loopback address, and you can see here where it says LO and then the curly braces. all we're using is that format method, since it's just a string value, and we're just putting in the loopback ID or loopback 88 ID, which is just 88. So technically this is just going to be LO 88, and then the admin status is up, and then I add a description added via netconf. And then on top of it, I had to in a separate, they did this in pieces in the learning lab, and I apologize if this is real small on stream. Let me see if I can kind of zoom in a hot minute. There we go. So I could combine this. The learning lab broke it up, so that's why it's broken up. But you can see that we created a loopback and in an admin status up and a description. And after we created the loopback, you'll note obviously like there's no IP address. Well, that's in a separate area or in a separate module. So you'll see there's an IPv4 items module, and then within that you'll see that we can find the ID is loopback, and then the address items, and the address here is just empty curly braces, and you'll see that we just put the IP address in there. So the first curly braces says, okay, what loopback? Well, we're still using the same loopback ID, and then the address here is the IP address, which you can see is up here. And it was just, I did this against the always on Nexus device that DevNet sandbox hosts. But it's pretty simple with NC client. You just connect to the device, and you just give it kind of reminds me like a NetMiko, where you give like host, port, username, password, verify false. And then this device params wasn't actually included in the learning lab, but reading the documentation, it helps in some way. I don't know if there's some sort of identification that NC client uses, but you could see that it's as simple as saying, okay, I want to edit the config, and I'm going to use this filter, or I'm sorry, this payload, so loopback add, and I'm going to target the running data store. So in NetConf there's a concept of data stores, and that's kind of where your target and your models live. So you can target running, which is obviously running config, startup config, and then a candidate config. And candidate is kind of newer for Cisco, I would say. Well, for iOS XE, I believe it was there for XR for a while, and Juniper has had it for a while as well. But candidate is kind of like that staging area, right? So you can mess up the candidate config, or validate your changes in candidate and then copy candidate to running. So it's like a nice staging area for running. So that way it's not like, I'm sure we've all been there where it's copy and then paste into running, and you just hope you don't lose that connectivity, or nothing goes wrong. And so that's what candidate's for. So in this case we're target running, and then we just get back a you either get back an RPC error, or you get or basically an OK. So if you get back an OK, we'll say okay, yep, loopback was added, else we'll say operation failed. And then same thing, we're editing the config once more, we're targeting the running config, and this is this second section where we're adding an IP address, and you see added loopback IP successfully. And that's it. So that was NetConf. I did a lot of examples like that, and so, hey, Mr. Hopalong, how you doing? Thanks for popping in. Let me know if you have any questions as I go through some things. So yeah, that was creating a loopback. There's some other things, getting capability. So and I know I'm doing this way out of order, so I apologize. I wasn't trying to make it into a long lesson. I was kind of I just want to highlight over kind of what I've been working on. So when specifically with NetConf is, I guess I take a step back. It's a it's TCP based, so it creates a session from the client to the server, and the server in this case, the server in this case is the network device, and so it has a session. It's not like RESTCONF, for example. RESTCONF is stateless because it kind of follows that RESTful architecture where it's stateless. It doesn't know anything about the previous run. It just kind of shoots in the dark, right? So whereas NETCONF is more transaction based, and it creates a session, and you could pass over multiple RPCs and multiple configurations in one transaction. And we kind of saw that with Yang Suite last week, where we had that same I think Angel was here last week, and he asked about can we do multiple RPC calls in the same transaction, and we did that. We got interface data, and Mr. Hopalong was here as well. We got Yang data. We got interface data. We configured an interface, and then got I think we configured 2 interfaces. We did a lot of stuff in a single transaction, and that was actually pretty cool. So I basically just translated. With Yang Suite, what we were doing manually, creating those RPCs. I just translated that to code using the NC client. So, but anyways, so taking all that knowledge of it's session based, actually runs over TCP port 830, and it uses SSH as a transport. NetConf uses SSH. So when it interacts with a device, it sends hello messages. Just think of it almost as like a net routing peers. It sends hellos, and then it exchanges a list of capabilities. And the idea of that is that it basically can tell you, okay, these are the Yang models I support. So these are the features that I support, and that you can, grab information, configure information. So, yeah. And I'll actually, thinking about it, I'll just run some of this code so that way it's not like conceptual. I'll run it real quick. So if we go to NetConf, Nexus, source VNV bin activate. All right, so let me pull this up a little bit. So if you remember, I have NC client installed. NC client was included in the requirements file, and so yeah, NC client 06.12, and I think that's the latest. I looked it up, but it's definitely one of the latest versions. So we have NC client installed, and let's just get a list of capabilities. And so this is the same code that I actually had on GitLab. It's actually easier to read in my opinion, just because it's in dark. It's like darker background instead of like white and pink. I don't know why GitLab does that, and they don't have an option for dark mode. At least I'm not aware of it. Okay, so we'll dive into model driven programmability, NetConf, NXOS, and remember we're using the always on sandbox, so hopefully it's online right now. I've definitely had issues sometimes where it's not. I have to create that device info.py. So let me create that real quick. New file, device, and this is really I'm kind of using this as my inventory. NXOS device, NXO, and this is actually something, shout out to Clay Curtis. He helped me out on like a stream months ago, and well, I don't know if, no, it was actually in a pull request. I don't know. He helped me out with basically creating like a like a static inventory file, so that way, even though these are all examples and like I'm still putting my password in clear text, they're not going to be tracked via Git or posted on GitLab or GitHub. So it's just good practice, and we talked about it on stream, and I totally agree. So basically what I'm doing here is saying from device info import nxos_device. So I created a Python file device info, and then I'm creating a variable here, nxos device, and you'll see that I basically am creating a dictionary, and I'm referencing them here whenever I connect. So we have address, netconf port. So let me just pull this out. Address, netconf port, and I'll pull all this information from the DevNet sandbox. Username and password. Okay. Crazy enough, I just did this the other night, so I think I remember the username and password. It was admin, and I want to say it was like admin_1234. Save. Okay. And as you can see here, since VS Code it grays out the file name just to say, hey, this isn't being tracked. So, which is good. And the way I'm able to have that feature is using the .gitignore file. You'll see it says device_info.py. All right. Let me just open it up here, and so DevNet, not DevNet Dan, DevNet sandbox. There we go. So I'll open it up. And just plug in my, actually it probably should, I'll just hide this for a sec. Okay. Just waiting for it to log in here. Grab a drink. Alright. Shall put this back underneath here. Sandbox Labs. And we want to do NX. Open NX. OS Programmability. This one's actually kind of neat. It lets you edit the config as well, which a lot of the always-on sandboxes don't let you do that. So I don't know what limitations there are, but I was able to create a loopback address. So here we go. So we'll copy that. 830, and then okay, admin_1234 exclamation. So the address is that 830. So now we have that. Yeah, like I mentioned, we're just pulling the address, the netconf port, username and password from this dictionary, and we're printing saying, hey, list of capabilities for this device, and then we're just printing them out. We're saying just a simple for loop. So let's see if it works. So we're gonna do Python get capabilities. There we go. So it connected to the device, that Nexus device, and it printed out all the capabilities. So you can see here, these are URIs. So the one thing that threw me off whenever I was first, and this was before this week, this was like DevNet Associate maybe, were the Yang models, and well, the URIs. And that's what these are down here. And so these are all kind of the Yang models supported, and you can see OpenConfig, Cisco is here, mostly OpenConfig. But you can see that this native model, and I think I had an issue with it, with like coming up with what what the different models were. So there's the native models, which are the vendor specific, proprietary models, and then the other one's literally just called open models, and they're like your industry standard Ietf, open config, those kind of models that work amongst all network devices. So it's open models, native models. I know I was struggling with it last week. I think I said open models, but I wanted just to clarify. Okay, so good news. You can see, YANG, Cisco NX-OS device. So we have a native Cisco model and then mostly open config models. And if let me pull up, I think this is it actually, the YANG model for it. The YANG language server crashed 5 times. Okay, whatever. Not okay. Yeah, so we were talking about the URI or the namespace. So you can see namespace here, and it looks like a URL, like something you would go to. You could click this link and it would take you somewhere. No, this is actually just a namespace, and I don't know why they put HTTP in front of it, but this is just to say, okay, Cisco, manages this model, and it's for Nexus devices. And so you can scroll down here. I mean, you can see how many. Let's see how many lines it is. 181,000 lines. Now, granted, like you see here, like one. I mean, how many lines is this? 5, at least 5 lines of just curly braces. So it's not like it's packed full of code, but you can see here groupings, the different leaves, I should say. Container. Let me see if I can find a module real quick. Oh, that's what I wanted to find. Module. Oh, you know what? I think it's just all false. I think I might have just passed one, to be honest. Anyways, this is like complex. This is a complex example because it's a pretty big model, as you can tell. But I was trying to break down like modules, containers, lists, and kind of show you the individual pieces. But we'll use one of these other examples here. So, like I said, this isn't a full. This isn't the actual YANG model itself. I mean, it is, but it's been using PyYang. I was able to kind of translate it to this tree form, but you can see, like, the module level, the container, the list here basically says, okay, the list name's interface, and it requires a name. So anytime you want to reference this list, you have to provide a name. Anything with a question mark is optional. You kind of can go through here. So it may or may not be in the output or in the input, whatever, whether you're configuring or pulling data. So anyways, the whole reason I wanted to show you this YANG model was because it's in the list of capabilities. Oops. Right here. So you'll see Cisco.com, YANG, Cisco NX-OS device, and the module or the namespace here is the same. So you can see this device, based on the capabilities it provided us to say, hey, I support these capabilities or these YANG models. This is one. So obviously you'd have to be able to read the model, but you could go through this and say, oh, okay, here's some data I could pull from it. So, okay. So there's that. So that's NETCONF. We talked about kind of the process, the hello, getting the capabilities. I do have this one here, this script. We won't go over it because I do want to dive into RESTCONF tonight, but it's on GitLab. All you have to do is define this device info file, and I might put that up in GitLab as well, so that way you can, I won't put I'll just put the format, and so that way you have a better understanding of what it looks like. But yeah, so that's kind of NetConf and I didn't go through it very thoroughly just because I've been kind of studying it most of this week. So I wanted to switch gears and go towards RESTCONF. RESTCONF, I think you may like a little more. It's really, like I said, I personally don't like XML as much as JSON, but I have learned to appreciate NetConf because of its transaction-based methodology, to where you create a transaction, you either push a bunch of changes to the device. It's really what they call is like the I think it's called the ACID concept. But basically the word ACID, it's an acronym, but it stands for I'm trying to think of how to pronounce it, like atomicity. It's atomicity, but like I can't pronounce that. But basically the transaction has to be atomic, so either it's all or nothing. Consistent, so obviously consistency. Independent, so basically each transaction is independent of one another. All the calls within the transaction obviously are grouped together, and all or nothing. And then D was shoot, I have it written down. Let me pull it up. I'm gonna cheat for a second. I had it. Dang. You know what? We got the power of the internet. ACID acronym. It's an acronym used also it's more commonly found in the database. Durability. There we go. Durability. Yeah, see. I don't know. It's tough for me to pronounce that. I'm sorry. I said independent. Isolation. I think you can say both. I mean, isolation and independent are kind of saying, yeah, it's happening, it's by itself. And then durability. So, yeah, it follows that same concept, which I can appreciate, because especially when you're rolling out changes. I mean, it was with automation. The joke is automation can just increase the blast radius. So if your change isn't good and you shoot it out to your entire network, shooting in the dark, and it just like hits one device after another. It's kind of like in those movies where like you see like the entire city like lose power, and it's like one section at a time. It's like doom, like lights off in each section of the city. That's the way I kind of see a network whenever you push out a wonky network change with automation. Like it's just like you see devices go offline and you're monitoring, and it's just like, so it can be a mess. So the transactions, being more of a transaction with NetConf and pushing everything out, kind of with that ACID concept, I think that's really cool, because you don't get that same concept with RESTCONF. RESTCONF is obviously RESTful, and if you look up RESTful architecture, you'll be able to see the different principles of that. And I'll just kind of pull it up so that way. And it's RESTful. People always ask, like, okay, I always hear about RESTful APIs, REST this, REST that. RESTful is really like, yeah, it's an architecture style. I always refer to it as like a framework. Come on, I just need like the big bullet points. Okay, never mind. That one didn't work. There we go. Maybe what is REST? guiding principles. Yeah, uniform interface, client server, stateless, cacheable, a layered system. There you go. So just know it basically, each call gets sent out, and it doesn't really care about the next call, which is good, right? In the world of HTTP, of the web, you don't need a transaction base where everything is like, okay, I got this, okay, thanks. Like, I mean, that's more TCP, but like, this is just it's hard to like explain, and like I can picture it, but it's hard for me to explain. But yeah, it's a difference between NetConf and RESTCONF. So Marcos, you said, hi Dan, I need to leave. Can I send you a message via Twitter? I need your advice related to DevNet. Absolutely. And anyone else in the stream or watching this on YouTube, anytime you have questions, yeah, Twitter's the best place to message or get a hold of me. So yeah, definitely Marcos. All right, where was I? All right, RESTCONF. Trying to like dial it in here. Let me just get rid of all this. So as I mentioned, RESTCONF and NetConf are just transport protocols. They're not, you kind of have YANG in the center. YANG is that structured data. And then on top of it, you have an RPC, which is a remote procedure call, which kind of like encapsulates the YANG data model. And then on top of that is your transport. So your transport is RESTCONF or NetConf, GNMI. There's a couple of different transport protocols. Yeah, Marcos, no, not a problem. All right, so new folder, we'll do RESTCONF. So I'm just adding it to what we have. So I'm gonna use, let's pop into Postman, and then we're gonna just use the request library to ping our devices, or get data from our devices. So I have Postman up here, and I'll kind of guide through it. I know I've mentioned it on stream before, and we've used it, I think, whenever I was making my NetCheck tool back in the fall. But this tool, Postman, is a really good tool to learn APIs. Just mess around with APIs, get a feel for them. So, I highly recommend, if you don't know anything about Postman, to check it out for sure. So I have a bunch of, so they have a concept of environment, like they have a bunch of concepts here. But what I mostly use are the environments and the collections. So collections are kind of like think of it as like folders of API calls. So if you make an API call and you want to be able to use it again, you would save the request, and then put it into a collection, or basically a folder. So you can see, I've used this since whenever I was studying for the in-auto exam back in I guess it's been a while now. A year? No, like 8-9 months ago. So yeah, SD-WAN, I have a bunch of things here. So we're actually gonna kind of switch our focus. Instead of looking at NXOS or a Nexus device, we're actually going to look at an iOS XE device. So some of these folders here you'll see I actually got from Nick Russo's free Postman collections. So another shout out to Nick. He provided that DevCore study plan, and he's also provided a bunch of free Postman collections, not just for the in-auto, but has a bunch of Postman collections, so definitely check out his site. And so we're gonna just take a look at what some of these are. I have some down here, but we're going to check out, like, for example, getting a list of interfaces using the Ietf models. So you'll see this is basically that call. It's called a URI. And so you'll be able to see here that, we have these are variables, this orange host import. I'm not going to show them. They're defined in my environment, which really just links back to CML. And actually, this is a good part here. I actually have to still enable I have to enable RESTCONF on the device. So with NETCONF, because it runs over SSH, you have to make sure you have a user account and SSH enabled, and also have NETCONF enabled. So, but with RESTCONF, because it's running HTTP, you have to make sure that your HTTPS server is running. So the way you can do that is, normally it's enabled by default, but you can see here IP HTTP secure server. So that obviously will allow port 443. And you also want to enable RESTCONF itself. And the way to do that is just conf t RESTCONF. And I'm going to just talk through it because I don't know. It's tough for me to see a little bit. So I know it might be tough on stream. So all I'm doing is conf t and then RESTCONF. So now RESTCONF is enabled, and you see here at the bottom these log messages just say RESTCONF server has been notified to start. So I'll let it kind of start up, and basically what happens under the hood is this RESTCONF server spins up, and a bunch of Linux services boot up as well. You can ignore that error opening message, but so a bunch of Linux services are kind of booting up, and I think we saw it on a previous stream, might have been even last stream, where we did show platform. I think it was show platform software. Was it RESTCONF? What was it? Boot up success. Okay. No, that doesn't make sense. Show RESTCONF. There you go. Cisco RESTCONF show commands. So we're gonna just take a quick look at how to verify RESTCONF is up and running. That's just getting AAA. Oh, and by the way, like you have to, having a username and AAA enabled. So we already had that enabled from the previous stream, but you can see here enabling HTTP services for RESTCONF. So literally just enable RESTCONF, which we did, and IP HTTP secure server, which we also have. Okay, so show platform software YANG management. I think that's what we did last time. Let's take a look. Show platform software YANG management process and monitor. Perfect. Okay, so we have a few. I mean, yeah, you can see we have some that started up in the past. It says 2 minutes here for Nginx, and Nginx, you know, you may or may not know, it's basically a web proxy. It can kind of be your web front end for a web server. So that's kind of why you see there. The others, because I've had this booted up for a little bit, would be related to NETCONF. So anything you see for over an hour, hour 13, that would be for NETCONF. Anything like here, these three are your YANG, or I'm sorry, YANG, RESTCONF processes. Okay, so we have it up and running. I can connect to it on the network, and just to verify that, I'll just log in SSH to it real quick. 160 and cool. So I'm in, and you can see here login success with NETCONF 2. Okay, so the reachability is there, and so what I'm doing now is, you can see here I'm using the same IP. So there's what's called a root resource for the URI. So we have HTTPS because obviously port 443. We're hitting the host and then port 443 just by default, and then you have your root here, the root resource. And actually, maybe just to show you, it might be good to do this, to be honest. Let me see. This is the list of capabilities, and this is something I actually, oh shoot, this is something I just recently learned, so bear with me. Get root resource, and so let me see, I have it wrote down here. Oh, you know what, I think I'm in the wrong part of my notebook. Let's see. Alright, there we go. To find the root. Okay, so this is kind of across the board. You can use this with any, to find the root of any kind of RESTCONF service. So by the way, with iOS XE, you'll always find it as /RESTCONF, and then this will kind of be the type of data you're looking for, whether it's configuration data, operational data. You'll have data here, but just like for my test as well, well known /host meta. So this should find us the root resource. So we're kind of starting at step 1. Okay, 404 not found. We're at a good place. We're at a good start. Dot well known. Maybe we'll just do well known. No, it definitely was the dot. Oh, no, it should be port 443. Let me just take the port out real quick. See if that makes a difference. Nah. Okay. Well, I promise you, this is legit. Dot well-known host-meta. Okay. Mr. Hopalong says dot host meta. You might be right. You might be right. No. Shoot. Let me try with dots in both places. No. Dang. Okay. Well, we tried. Yeah, it's not working. Oh well, I'll keep that as a reference. We'll go back to that. Okay, so kind of like how NETCONF, whenever I talked about NETCONF, you say hello, and then you get your list of capabilities, which we saw in that Python script. You can do the same thing with RESTCONF. So like I said, we hit our root resource of /RESTCONF, and then /data for your configuration data. This can change. So if you're trying to pull operational data, or not pull operational data. I've said this, I apologize. I've said this in the last stream as well, and I was wrong. When I say operational data, it's not really pulling operational data. It's more or less performing operational tasks. So like saving configuration, flapping an interface, those sort of tasks. So I apologize. Whenever I'm referencing data here, it's your configuration data and your operational data, because all of that is stored in the same YANG data model, which we saw in, where did it go? Which we saw in here. Course. I have to find it again. No, that wasn't it. Let's do this one. So here's your configuration data, the read write, anything with RW. And VS Code it nicely highlights everything. But anything with RO is your operational data. And as you can see, this was pulled from the same YANG model and under the same module. So if I even pull this up, you can see everything's under the same module called, it's under the OpenConfig interfaces module. And you'll see it's read write for configuration data, and then RO for read only. And you can see down here all the gray blocks. That's all the read only data. So that's a lot of operational data. And I'm calling it operational data. I probably should call it like operational state. But I know I mentioned it last stream that like oper and config were two different, like, I'm going to set it as like two different items, and I apologize, I was wrong. All the operational data and the configuration data are in the same YANG data model, but when you use it in the context of, you pull it down, RESTCONF and NETCONF, your data is your configuration data or your operational. Your operational is performing those operational tasks. As I mentioned, like shutting it, or flapping an interface, shutting an interface, or saving the config. And we'll actually take a look. I actually have a call to save the config, which was also brought up in the last stream. Okay, so the root, we're affecting configuration data, or pulling from the configuration data in this case because we're using Git. We're using the Ietf YANG library module. This module particularly looks at the supported models, via RESTCONF. Access denied. Perfect. Okay, so we're on a roll here. Oh, this would be why. One thing I left out. And actually, I'm gonna go back to this root resource. The username and the password. So that should work. Perfect. Okay. So another big miss by me. With RESTCONF, you have to pull, you have to use basic authentication, whereas before with NETCONF, since it's not using HTTP, it's using SSH. You can put a username or user account on the device, or in ICE, or just a AAA username account for the device, and just roll with it because it just uses it SSHs to the device using that username. Well, now we're using HTTPS. We need to change it to basic authentication, and provide the username and password. The username was right because it's using the username variable for the environment, which is netconf2. The password was wrong because we were using an old password for another environment. Okay, so let's open up this in a separate tab here, and let's see if it works now. So let's change auth. So basic auth, and if we were to write this out, by the way, in code, this would be in base64 encoding. So basically you would have basic auth. It would, in the header, it would say something like, here, we'll actually check it out. See, it says basic space, and then it's base64 encoded, and it's the combination of the username and password. Don't get encoding wrong or mixed up with encryption, because encoding is not encrypted or encryption. So you can go to any website and look at like how to reverse base64 encoding. it's just hard to read on the wire. That's the reason you kind of have encoding, but it definitely is not irreversible. So just kind of a heads up there. That's how the header actually looks, but because we're using Postman, we have this nice auth tab. All right, NETCONF 2. Aha! I was right. All right, so to get the root resource, we need it. Dot well known / host meta. You can do that on any kind of using RESTCONF, and here you can see it links to the root resource, which is /RESTCONF. So, Eric's in the chat. Hey, Eric. So Eric says, I think you can see the encoding in the console, maybe. True. Where's the console? There we go. Yeah. Yeah, so here's like the full, and this is actually probably what you want to do. Like if you want to, I consider this more like the API Wireshark. Now that, take it as you need, as you want. But this kind of goes into the API calls that you make, and then your status code, how long it took, and your request and response, and all the headers that go with it. So pretty cool stuff. But as Eric mentioned, for the authorization header, here's the value basic, and then here's the whole base64 encoding. So thanks for that, Eric. And something neat, you can highlight over this. It took 113 milliseconds, and you can see how long each section took, or each kind of component. So the transfer was really the longest piece here. So pretty neat stuff though. And on top of it, and I'm kind of jumping all over the place, you can actually generate code for this, which actually we'll end up using here in a second. But it uses the request library, and you can use Python, Node.js, PHP. I mean, you can do it for anything, but obviously Python in our case, it shows you exactly how to make this call, because as any sort of API, we're using HTTP under the hood. So you basically, for RESTCONF specifically, can use the request library, whereas with NETCONF we had to use the NC client library. All right, so we have the root resource. We already knew the root resource, but it's good to know that this call works. Well known / host meta. So we'll kind of tuck that away. We already have that saved down here as the request. So back to this one here, back to this response. So this we call the Ietf YANG library. This is a more in-depth look at think of it as your capabilities, but it's more or less all of the YANG models or modules that the device supports that you can use. And you can see the namespace. The namespace is important because as we saw in the actual YANG model, the namespace is kind of that unique identifier. And then you can see the schema as well, which is kind of a combination of the module name and then the revision date. So, but yeah, you can see, like, I'm not going to scroll through all of it, but you can see there's a lot of anything with Cisco, and the namespace starts with http cisco.com. I mean, those are your native models. So you can see there's a lot. You can see there's a couple open config as well, like open config here. But to keep it simple, we'll be looking just at the Ietf, and then some of the other. We'll look at Ietf tonight, the Ietf interfaces, and we'll be continuing this conversation in the next stream as well, since we'll be looking at model-driven telemetry, which uses these same YANG data models. It just pulls the operational data instead of the configuration data. remember, that's all in the same Yang data model, right? So I wanted just to preface it because I did kind of steer you wrong last stream. Whether I did or not, but I definitely said it as if they were different. All the data is in the same data model. It's just that they're separated, whether it's read write or read only. So okay. So we have the list of capabilities. You could read through this. You could find, you can go through and find the models and find the exact data points you want. I'm going to cheat a little bit because I already have some of these requests stored. And like I mentioned, these are from Nick Russo's Postman collection. I've just had them for a while. And I like them because they have the request, and along with them, they have these stored responses. What it would look like, success and failure. So here, calling the root resource RESTCONF, that data, the configuration data, the module name is Ietf interfaces, and the list that we're trying to pull is interfaces. So we'll pull this list. Oh shoot, I gotta change it for everything, don't I? I apologize, I didn't have this set before. So now we'll pull it. There we go. So you'll see, we dove into the interfaces, the list of interfaces. And for this particular device, we have Gigabit Ethernet 1, Gigabit Ethernet 2, 3, 4, so on. This is the Ietf version. This is what the only data points that are shown. You can see I think it's kind of weak, but it's weak because it has to accommodate for all vendors. Whereas Cisco is a little more particular, and can be more particular. And I don't have that one prepped. I don't think. I thought I did. No, I don't. Okay, I will get that for next time. I'll make a note to have the Cisco, the native interface model for next time. Okay, so so we're getting the interfaces here. You can see it's in JSON. Unlike NetConf requires XML. You can also get it in XML, and maybe we'll do that. I haven't actually played with it too much because I've always just wanted it in JSON. But you'll see here, Yang data plus JSON. We can just turn this around and just say XML. I don't know if the dot errors will work with XML. I don't think it will, but we'll rock with it. Let's see. There you go. Boom. So, yeah. So it's the same data, just in XML. Look how pretty it is. Yeah, and just to highlight what I did there, so you kind of have two headers when you, a lot of times you have two headers with API calls, an accept header and a content type header. Accept is obviously the data that you're willing to accept. The content type header is for basically telling the server, okay, this is the type of data that I'm sending. And so he can check that. He whatever, putting pronouns to servers now. The server can take that and say, okay, yeah, that's cool. I accept, that reply or that request. But I'm gonna switch it back to JSON because I'm not messing around with XML. Oh, not Josh and JSON. There we go. Okay. And so if we want to get something particular, we can actually pull the interface, a particular interface by its name. And the reason I know that is because if we go to, I think I have it stored here. That's NXOS. I think I have it stored under an examples folder. Dang. Okay. Oh, here's here we go. Here's the namespace. Yeah, XML namespace. Here is, I think I had this from last week, from our when we were looking at Yang Suite. Here's the native Yang. I'm sorry, the Cisco native interfaces module. When we called and got particular data from the using the Cisco native model instead of the Ietf model that we just used, you can see the difference. We have the interface, the name, IP address, the primary, because you can put secondary IPs on interfaces. If we're logging anything particular on the interface, whether it's enabled. So there's a couple more data points with that. I'm gonna try to do this from memory. Let me see, copy. Just in case I mess this up. Duplicate. Okay. Because I think it was native interfaces. This might not work. Invalid value. Yeah, I don't think it's native. No. I should have just saved that call from last week. It's crazy. Oh, I have it pulled up. So this is going to be a quick learning moment here. I have the Yang models pulled up. Vendor, Cisco, XE. I think this is 17.3.2. iOS XE 17.3.2. So I'm going to do just the 17.3.1. Perfect. Thank you, Eric. I'll try that. That looks right, what you put in the chat. I just copied it right from the chat. So Eric provided the path here. So we're going to try that. Yeah, that looks right, actually. Try it. Perfect. Cool. Okay. Yes, and this pulls... So this looks like it pulls the operational data for all the interfaces. Yeah, so speed, the statistics. But I will save this. We'll just call it get Cisco native interfaces opper. I'm just going to delete this since they're different calls. Okay. Let's see. Okay, Mr. Hopalong says, Dan, when you started DevNet Expert, did you download Ubuntu and build the VM from scratch, or did you download an ISO from Cisco with all the apps and modules preloaded with the exact dependencies? So I took the long way. So whenever they announced it back in October, the lab exam, I just kind of jumped on it. So I built everything from scratch. I downloaded the Ubuntu ISO and then downloaded all the apps individually and loaded the Python and all the requirements into a virtual environment. So yeah, I did everything manually. I do believe though that Clay Curtis, he actually has something up on his GitHub. I believe he uses a Vagrant file. Let me pull up his GitHub real quick. Clay. Repositories. Here we go. So I'm going to put this in the chat. Yeah, so Clay made this. So it generates a VM for the expert exam using VMware Workstation. So he uses Packer, which I'm unfamiliar with. Packer.io with HashiCorp. I've heard of Packer, but I've never used it. So I'll put this in the chat though for you, Mr. Hopalong. So hopefully this works. Yeah. All right, so that's in the chat. A link to his GitHub here, and so he even has like a nice little. It's pretty. I mean, it's pretty cool here. So it looks like you have to install Packer and then download the ISO, and then that's about it. It looks like everything else is kind of here for you, and it will build it. I don't know if you need VMware Workstation. Oh yeah, download VMware Workstation 16. So, but yeah, if you don't want to build it from scratch like I did, I would say maybe try out Clay's Packer thing here. So, what's this about? So, getting and installing NSO. Oh, cool. I'll have to check this out. I'll have to install NSO. Okay. So, we haven't really looked at the device. So, yeah, and Mr. Hopalong, if you have any questions, I'll try to answer some now. But if not, I know Clay is very active on Twitter. That's the best place I know to reach him. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to him there as well. I'm sure he won't mind. So we made a couple calls using Postman, and you can see here the where we authenticated using NETCONF2, the username NETCONF2, and was authorized for REST over HTTP. So that's a pretty legit log message. Kind of pretty good about it. So Mr. Hopalong says he'll check it out. He or she will check it out. I have an Ubuntu VM already I've been messing around with since DevNet Associate, but I may want a fresh one for DevNet Pro or Expert. Thanks for the info. Yeah, it never hurts. Now I will say, like, for me at least, it took me like it took me a little bit, but it also kind of sucked away the energy to like begin labbing, if that makes sense. So I would say, if anything, it takes you at least a day to kind of get the VM set up, get everything set up, and then by the end of it, you're like, all right, cool, I'm done, and I have everything set up. So I mean, it's kind of a learning experience as well, like how to install things, I learned, installing Terraform. Never had to do it in the past, so it never hurts to do it manually, and you only have to do it once, especially if you have, any of the VM hypervisors these days. You can copy the VM or create it as a template and kind of go from there. So okay, so Eric was kind enough to provide this path here. It looks like it's mostly operational data. Now there's some, I'll have to mess around with this, to be honest, because I should be able to manipulate some of the values, that are read-write. But I also want to limit my output to just a specific interface. So I'm going to continue using the Ietf model, Yang model, but definitely, Eric, next stream when we look at model-driven telemetry, we'll dive more into the native models. So, yeah, Eric says, sorry, it was the wrong one. No. I actually, it may be the right one. Like I said, I know with these models they have the kind of the quote-unquote operational data and the configuration data side by side. So I just haven't kind of looked at that model enough. So to be honest, I don't know. So yeah, we'll dive into it for sure. I'll dive into it over the weekend, and then next stream, we'll talk about it more. Okay, so for this particular model though, we are going to dive into, like, if we wanted to pull out just a specific interface, we have the module name, Ietf interfaces, the list here called interfaces, and you can see that up here. But if we want, let's say, gigabit Ethernet 1, so we'll do interface, and no, I'm not well, I guess I'm kind of cheating, but it's because I've done this in the past a little bit. You do interface equals, and you might be like, okay, out of all of these values, how does he know to use the name? Well, if you reference the model, we have the name is the key of the item, and so, or of the it's slipping, of the list. There we go. So that's how I know to use the name value, and we'll just kind of autofill it there, but we'll switch it to 1. So we're going to dive into just gigabit Ethernet 1. So only 1 should show whenever I send this command here. And what you can see, it does. So we've now kind of drilled into just gigabit Ethernet 1. Let's go ahead and I'm going to add an interface. So I'm going to add a loopback interface, loopback 10, and I'm just going to put some baloney IP address with it. We'll add a loopback real quick, and then we will dive into, we'll also update an IP address, and then I'll call it there. So let's go ahead and do this. So here, the request looks the same because we're targeting the same container, same module, same container. But you'll notice in here, I believe, yeah, with Nick's example, he also is creating a loopback and specifies all this information here. And so we'll kind of do the same thing. I was actually kind of hoping I was gonna go from scratch, but I mean, I guess I could. So if you take this output here, name, type, you kind of can do the same thing where you literally just copy and paste the output, and then you change whatever you're looking for. So, and we'll do that here. So you can see here, he has the interface list. So we're just gonna delete what he has, paste here. Let's see. Oh, his formatting is. I wonder what's different though. Oh, I know why. There we go. I was like, of course it's a missing curly brace. Alright, so we're gonna create a loopback, what did I say, loopback 10. So we'll do loopback 10. I'm just gonna do, like I said, maybe we'll just do 10, 10, 10, 10. And then with a /32 mask, We're not going to put an IPv6 address right now. Alright, and we don't need the extra curly brace. Perfect. Okay, so we have a list of interfaces, really just one. If we wanted to, we could add, maybe let's do that. Let's just to make it a little different. We'll add a loopback 20 and do the same thing. So we'll do this, comma, boom. Line up the curly braces, we'll do loopback 20. And we'll see if it works here. Alright, so we're hitting the same endpoint here, same resource. And you know, we have a body for loopback 10 and then another loopback 20. So just so you guys, everyone knows that I'm not pulling any funny business, I will show you guys the interfaces on the router currently. Alright, and so it's hard to read, but you can see here gigabit 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so we'll jump back to Postman and we'll see what we get. Okay. Interface loopback 10. Unsupported value must be Ethernet or software loopback. It's a software loopback. So basically what this is saying is when you add a new interface using this Ietf model, the type has to be either Ethernet or a software loopback. And right now I'm saying it's an Ethernet, which obviously is not right. It's a software loopback. And so I'm going to change that to software loopback. Maybe. Copy, paste. There we go. Paste. All right, let's try again. And we get a 201. So that's a good sign. So 201 took 3 seconds. You can see most of it was just talking to the device. And here you go. So I don't know why it says configured as from console as netconf. But you can see here loopback 10, loopback 20 are in upstate. So that's a good sign. So the logs show that they're in an upstate. And boom, there we go. And just to see, we'll do show loopback 10 and show run loopback 20. Cool. So that's that. I mean, we created 2 loopback interfaces using RESTCONF. And then what else did we want to do? Oh yeah, we wanted to update. And so I'm gonna go ahead and wonder if I can somehow duplicate. Oh, save as. Loopback. Loopbacks. And so let's do it in here. Alright. So that way we won't save this one. Cause I like keeping Nick's examples. They're just good, and because like I said, they have a the save response. So it says 201 created, and then as an example, if I wanted to create it again, and maybe we'll just try it out. Let's see. It should error out. There we go. So it says object already exists, which is great. So it it knows it won't overwrite it. Cool. So, and now we want to update an interface. Let's do let's see, what's this one? Update. I haven't tested this out, but I would assume we could just do a put and we'll update the interface. So loopback 10, we'll say instead of 10 10 10 10, we'll say it's going to be 200 and the subnet mask will be 255. And we'll take care of that as well. And I don't think, I wonder if I can turn it off or not turn it off, shut it down. So I changed enable to false and I changed the IP in the net mask. I don't think I need type. I think I only need the fields that are changing. But we'll keep the type for now to see if it works, and if it doesn't, yeah, 401 bad request. I don't know if you can do a put. Yeah, let's go ahead and take that out. And then this. I'm not changing that either, so we'll do that. Yeah, and I'm not even sure put is possible. Should be. I'm just gonna trim it down to see if I can get it to work. If I can't, I can't. Okay. Well, I'll do some digging on this one to update the interface. Oh, I know why. Watch, you guys will think. Oh, duh. Loop back 10. And then what we'll do is just say, I don't really need anything besides this. I don't even think I need the name. No, I don't even need the name. So we have the address, bam, bam. And so let's just crank it down. Oh. Beautify it. There we go. Make it look nice. Now let's try to update loopback 10. Maybe I only need this. Let's see. It might work out like this, to be honest. Element IP. We'll have to work on this. Let's see. Sorry, Mr. Hopalong, I missed a few of your messages here. He asks, so if you wanted to enable OSPF v3 on a loopback interface, would you need to reference another module, or is OSPF v3 not supported? You most likely will have to, if it's not in the, I'm not referencing the models directly, you know, with these. I'm referencing the models, I interact with them, but you'd have to actually read through the model itself. OSPF v3, I believe, is supported, but you have to use another model. So you'd use another model specific for OSPF v3 that may specify the interfaces. Because remember, like, you kind of have to detach yourself from this being a CL, like in the CLI, you might put like interface, loopback, whatever, and you would then put the OSPF v3, OSPF, the IPv6 command under the interface. Well, now that we're talking about structured data models, there's probably a model just for OSPF v3. I know there is. Don't want to say I know. I've seen, and I've looked at a bunch of Yang models, so I guess I will say do your homework on it. But anyways, there is a data model most likely on OSPF v3, and then you should be able to identify your interface there. But don't take my word for that. I would say check Ietf or OpenConfig first, because those, like I mentioned, are the open models that work against any network vendor, and then there are the vendor, the native models that are vendor specific, and that would I'd try there second, but it most likely will probably be on the native models. And then you asked Mr. Hopalong, said, have you had a reason yet to use put calls, or just or just only needed to swap between get and post? Yeah, so mostly get and post, because I'm still getting familiar with the data models themselves. To be honest, with the exam, I need to do more homework on actually reading through the models and really getting a better understanding of them, because I think my problem and what I'm trying to train myself for is the time management aspect. So reading through people that have taken the CCIE lab and whatnot, everyone says, hey, time management is your worst enemy. So I know we'll get documentation, but I want to make sure I'm familiar enough with these models to where I've made these calls enough to where I'm like, okay, I can recognize an XPath, or I can recognize what a call may look like. So and then you also asked about a delete. Yeah, so actually that might be a better thing to do, because I want to end the stream on on a good note. So so we'll actually do a delete. The put, like I said, I'll check out. I don't know if we can do it, but with the delete, all we have to do is specify the interface. I'm pretty sure. If not, I have a good example right here, but I'm not going to use it. I'm going to see if I can just do it myself here. So with this, you just specify the interface by name for this specific Yang data model. So we'll just delete. Let's delete loopback 20. I like 10. Alright, so we'll go ahead and delete it. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, so you can see here 204 no content. That's an HTTP code, obviously, status code. So 200, obviously 200 okay, 201's for created, and 204 is no content. So that's good. That's good. 204 no content means it should be deleted. So now if we go back to our device, so if we go back to our device here, you'll see let me get back into the console. So now we should just see loopback 10, because we deleted, yep, loopback 20. So yeah, loopback 10's here, loopback 20's gone. So yeah, so there's a delete. So I have used the delete in the past. Do I think I'll use it in production? Probably not. How many times do you have to delete a interface, right? And remember, delete is different from shutting down an interface, right? So shutting down an interface, obviously you can use an operational. Oh, and that's one last thing I want to show you. And I realized we didn't really get to the code aspect, so I owe everyone that as well, using the request library. So alright, so we deleted interface 20, loopback 20. Just to note before I move on from this, there was no body. All we did was specify the name of the interface, and it took care of everything. Okay, so what's this one? Oh no, don't save. Oh, this is what I wanted to show you. Saving the config. So as I mentioned, if you look at even the delete one here, you'll see, the root resource. And then I mentioned before, when we're messing with data, or, the configuration data, the operational data, all of that's found in the same YANG model, right? But when we actually are performing an operation, so flapping an interface, saving a config, doing something, right, to the device, we actually reference the operations. And this is specific for iOS XE. But we actually specify operations here. And you'll see, the Cisco IA module, and then specifically the save config. I haven't looked at this specific YANG model, but let's see if it works. And we actually do have changes that need saved. We created that loopback 10. Loopback 20 is no more, but we do have loopback 10 now. So we'll go ahead and run this, and it is a post. Perfect. Access denied. I know why though. It's okay. All right. So now we'll do a post. Perfect. And we can see the results. Save running config successful. And we got a 200 OK there. So let me scoot back to here, and you can see, actually you can see both attempts. You can see that authentication failure from my IP for REST over HTTP, and then you can see where it authenticated successfully and the config was saved. So yeah, so now we're good. So and just to verify, let's just do show startup. Loopback 10. Actually, back to, and you can see it's in the startup config, so it did save. So Mr. Hopalong asks, so like if you wanted to remove, for example, a BGP config, would you not use delete in the case where someone may have used the wrong local ASN? Good question. So I will say I haven't looked at the BGP, the open or the native YANG models in detail, but I will say it really, so I think you may be able to get away with a put to update, but yeah, I would say if you have the wrong local ASN specifically, where you have to completely remove the BGP config and then re-add it, I would say yeah, you probably want to do a delete and then a post. Julio, hey, I'm glad first time seeing the chat. Julio asks, could you resend the correct BGP config in its entirety? So two ways of looking at it. One, using NETCONF, and remember NETCONF is transaction based, so you should be able to send the and NETCONF is different in its CRUD operation. So like with RESTCONF, you have get, put, post, patch, delete, and so on. With NETCONF, you only have get config, edit config, or delete config. There's some other things like lock, unlock. So with NETCONF, you might be able to do an edit config and then put your desired configuration in the body. Obviously be XML, whatever. So there's that way with NETCONF and edit config. And then with RESTCONF, I imagine with RESTCONF, you may have to do a delete and then a post. But I would also consider doing something like a put or a patch. So put is like updating. But because, like I said, given your situation, a local ASN, you might just have to do a post. Since it's like a whole new brand new config. But But yeah, hopefully that answers your question. The ways of using NetConf and RESTCONF. And like I said, I'm actually, after this stream, I'm gonna amend my tweet from the other day that said that I don't think NetConf and XML are fun. I will say I have more of appreciation for NetConf, and I understand some more pros to it. XML I still don't like, but so yeah, so Julio said, might have to play with this tomorrow. I'm interested. Yeah, he said, play with this in the lab tomorrow. For the when I first read that, Julio, I first read that as you're going to be in LA tomorrow, and I was like, oh, you're cool. I know you're kind of from the West Coast, so I thought you were going to be in LA. Yeah, for sure. And Julio, if you do get a chance to mess around with it, I'll probably be messing around with it either tomorrow night or this weekend. I'll definitely look at the BGP, because actually one of the I'm not going to pull it up, but one of the exam topics is to automate the configuration of BGP. So I'll take a look at it as well. But if you do find an answer, if you get to it before me, definitely let me know, and I can repost it on Twitter, or Mr. Hopalong. If you're on Twitter, definitely, if you're not already following me, definitely follow Julio as well. Julio PDX, I believe that's his Twitter handle as well. Really cool dude, and amazing blogger, has some really awesome blogs. So yeah, that's all I have for tonight. I apologize. I went a little long on the explanation piece of NetConf and RESTCONF, but I'm learning a lot about each, and I used to just discount NetConf and just say it's the older protocol and it uses XML. Okay, yeah. So Nick, so Mr. Hopalong, I had no idea. I apologize. Yeah, I talked to you on Discord before. I apologize. I had no idea. Cool. I think that was a surprise to Eric too. Eric also says Jeremy Schulman has a YouTube video about traversing XML via XPath. What he does is strip the namespaces, then traverses the XML. I've seen that video. Actually, I have it in a playlist, so I need to rewatch it. But yeah, Jeremy's awesome. Mr. Hopalong, I might just have to reference you as Nick as well. It's just easier. But he asks, are you going to get on the Discord coffee hour on Saturday? Yeah, for sure. I think it's Saturday morning at 8 a.m., 9 a.m. Eastern. I forget. I'll have to check the Discord. Yeah, I do plan on getting on this Saturday. I should be available, so at least for a little bit. Might only be, but yeah, I'll definitely hop on. Talk to everyone, because I know you all are you're in your DevCore studies, which I saw Eric recently have you shared a chatbot, and it's been a minute since I've looked into that stuff, and I have to again. I was real deep into it with the DevCore, but that was I realized I have the DevCore. I passed the DevCore back in I have it hung up on April 16th of last year. It's almost been a year. It's 10 months. So yeah, it's been a minute. Yeah. So Julio asks, was that topic editing BGP with RESTCONF or NetConf? I can't try either or both. I think you meant I can try either or both. But I don't think, Nick, did you have a specific did it matter to you? I think it was more around RESTCONF, Julio. But that's only because we've been looking at RESTCONF but I would be interested on how RESTCONF and NETCONF would handle it, because based on like kind of what I know, or my assumption, NETCONF might be able to handle that better, to be honest. I mean, XML, like I said, you got to mess with XML at that point, but yeah, okay, yeah, so Nick was specifically asking about RESTCONF. RESTCONF would be the more interesting use case, though, because with all the different CRUD operations, you know, post, put, patch, you know, what would work, so. Cool. Well, yeah, that's all I have tonight. That's cool. I figured out it was Nick from the our network engineering Discord. So cool. And Julio says he'll run both and compare. Cool. So yeah, like I said, Julio, if you figure it out, let me know. Oops. Yeah, so Nick says that delete calls aren't on NetConf. Wonder if edit config would work though. Yeah, so that's what I was thinking too, using edit config, and then making the desired config, or creating the desired config, and then just sending it and seeing if it would overwrite. There is a delete config RPC call, but I mean I believe that's deleting the entire data store. That's not just that's not just a piece of the configuration. And let's see. Oops, chat's getting crazy now. Now Julio said he's going to go through some BGP studies, so this fits in. Great stream. Thanks Julio. And I need to catch up with you. I meant to message you today about your that migration from WordPress to, or I don't know if you were going from WordPress, but you're going to the Hugo, I think it is, the Markdown blogs on GitHub. I still got to catch up with you on that. I apologize. I've been real busy with work. And Nick says, have a good night. I appreciate it. Thanks again for hopping on. William George says, just decided to start on DevCore today, and this popped up in recommendations. Awesome. Cool. That's a first for me. Cool. That's awesome. I don't know how I beat the YouTube algorithm. Anyways, I'm glad you're here. Did you say you guys have a Discord for stuff like this? Yeah, so we're actually all part of a Discord called The Art of Network Engineering. I believe it's called... The Art of Network Engineering is the podcast. And the community, I'm trying to pull it up here. I think, yeah, it's all about the journey. Let me see if I can find the link. Yeah, Nick has it there. It's all about the journey Discord, or Art of Network Engineering podcast. Yeah. So Nick, I don't know if you're on a computer or anything, or I don't know if you could pull it from your phone. I'm a noob when it comes to Discord. Do you know? Could you put a link in the chat for me? And then William, if you want to, you can join. And we're all in the Discord. When you get into it, has a bunch of different channels for like all these different certifications, and there's one particular for DevCore, and we're actually all in it. So that would be awesome if you joined. Yeah, Julio says post the link. I know. I wish I could. I just don't know. They used to have a link. I can't think of. There's like a shortcut. But William, we'll hook you up with a link. Just give me a minute. I'm looking on my phone. I'm just looking on my phone for it. Found it on the Googler. There we go. All right, cool. Yeah, so if you join that Discord, you can post. Yeah, I mean, definitely post something in the general chat. I'll definitely give you, if I see you post, then I'll definitely be like, hey, that was William from the stream. That's awesome. That's cool that you found it through like a recommendation. Cool. Yeah. So William, assuming you're new, every Thursday, 8:00, we meet. That's so weird. Okay. Nick, I think William found it. Yes, he says he found it on Google. So I think he'll be good. Because there definitely is a link on the Art of Network Engineering on their website. So, but yeah, William, once you join, feel free to join any channel, but the Dev Core channel I think is the coolest because we're all in it. But yeah, we definitely love the chat. So, and yeah, but Nick, I'll take a look at that. I've heard a few things about. I think it's something to do with my chat permissions that like others besides me, I can share links specifically. So I'll change that for the future streams because I want you guys to be able to share links. I think it's enabled by default so people can't come in and like spam like, nasty websites into your chat. So. All right. Well, this was awesome. I think this is probably one of my best streams as far as chatting with you all. I definitely enjoyed it. I hope you all learned something with RESTCONF, NETCONF. And yeah, I'll definitely talk to you all on Saturday morning. So we at that coffee hour. Eric added, it filters. Earlier I had typed the root endpoint and it didn't make it to your screen. Oh, okay. All right. I'll in the meantime, I'll watch Jeremy's video on XPath. I started it, but as with YouTube, I mean, you click on a video and like a minute in, something else pops up in the recommended, and you're like, oh, that looks fun. Then you get down the YouTube hole. So, yeah, I'll take a look at it, Eric, and try to get it resolved by next stream. Because next stream, like I said, I think I mentioned it, but next stream will be about model-driven telemetry. So we'll still be stuck with Yang data models, but we'll be pulling out the operational statistics. So, your discards, your interface drops, BGP neighbors, all that good stuff. We'll get all of that extracted out. We'll build the TIG stack. And kind of go from there. Oh, okay. So, okay, I see what you mean. Eric was saying about the well-known, yeah, finding the root resource. He entered it in the chat, but it didn't show up. That's weird. That's real weird. Okay. I think I ended up having the right resource wrote down. I think the issue was the authorization, or yeah, the authentication. I didn't have the right username password in my header, or the right password. I had the right username, but yeah, Eric, yeah, it filters certain chats, maybe like a / URLs. Yeah, because I'll change that. I'll try to change that in the next stream, in the future stream, is so that way you guys can post links, and if it filters on like // backslashes, I'll try to get that figured out too. Like I said, I think it was just so that way no random person can come in here and start spamming a bunch of websites, nasty websites or something like that. So, all right. Well, I had fun tonight, and we'll pick this up next Thursday, and I'm sure, well, with everyone in the chat being with the It's All About the Journey Discord, I'm sure I'll talk to you all this weekend during the coffee hour. Yeah, coffee happy hour. Yeah, so all right, cool. All right, well, you all have a good night, and I will talk to you soon. Peace.
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust.